going on? All right. Enough of that music. Enough of that music. Time to get into this thing. Let me get my stream up and together. This is goodness for 2024. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. We got the New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's. Confetti going on. We're doing good. Loving what's happening here. I'm actually gonna leave a new banner here. Thanks for stopping by. Leave a comment so I know you were here. Because you got to say these things. People go around slipping and they won't actually say something when you think they should. Yeah, I did this a second ago. It wasn't working out the way I thought it would. So we're going to do it again. We're going to run this up again. Not a problem. Not a problem. Boom. That's not what I wanted. This thing is supposed to be scrolling. What's wrong with you? You know, you try to set something up like this and it acts bad on you. Supposed to have a scrolling ticker on the screen. Let's see if we can get this to happen. And there we go. Scrolling ticker. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what's up. Got the helicopter going by right at the beginning of this 2024 stream. Did a test stream last night, nights ago, in another format, and I kind of wanted to redo this thing and change it up a little bit. So we're going to be doing it again today. Thank you all for joining in. It's only the beginning of the year. It's only January 2nd. So we got plenty of time to build this thing out, work some things through, find a new way of communicating with one another, find a way of avoiding neighborhood helicopters that are trying to catch people running from their neighborhood and running through this one. But nevertheless, we get it going. We get it popping. We makes it happen. If you're on Facebook, I'm actually showing up a little earlier than I was supposed to. But that's all good. Because we got some things to talk about. Today, we're going to be going over what did I even call this? Making resolutions real. I got 4 steps. 4 steps to make your resolutions real, because they probably aren't real for you and you're just saying some things to yourself. You're probably wondering why everybody makes such a fuss about resolutions, why this is the one holiday that I really like, man. I really like this holiday and people always mess it up. So what we're going to do is go through what I have discovered for me and hopefully for a lot of other people. What I have discovered works well for getting your resolutions in order and making them real. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Mr. Benja. I'm a lifelong creative, and I'm starting this podcast called Creativity Threads Life. I am known as a creative. I created video games for several years. 13, I'll say. We'll say about 13 years I created video games professionally. I was a programmer and a designer. Worked for Rockstar Games, worked for 3DO, worked for Sony Santa Monica, and a couple other spots. But now I am out doing other random things, hosting art shows, consulting, doing some behind-the-scenes development, doing some background work, design, graphic design here and there, and helping things happen, man. I'm also running the Show versus Business podcast. But in 2024, I wanted to start something new. It's a podcast called Creativity Threads Life. And I started on this podcast after I started on Threads last year, a couple days ago. After I started on Threads last year, right? And I really liked the vibe of it. It had a very creative vibe, a sense of community. It was new and fresh and hadn't had the chance to spoil like other platforms have. Now, it's definitely not perfect. It's still new. A lot of people don't understand how to get on there and have conversations in the Threads way, and they're upset with it. But nevertheless, I found a good home there. I found a good bunch of people to talk to, and a bunch of people to work with, and a bunch of people to, in general, be social with my media with. So I started this Threads account, been knocking on it, and a lot of the discussions there, I realized I wanted to go deeper than just the basic, right? I wanted to go a little deeper than the normal. I'm just gonna drop a comment. I'm gonna drop a post. I'm gonna make a few statements. I'm gonna make a 4-part thread at the most. I want to connect what I was saying there with what I was saying with the real world. So I started this thing, Creativity Threads Life, and it's going well for me. I have a couple episodes up already just to kind of tease them out, get my flow going. But now I'm going to start getting into this more and more often, which means showing up here many nights of the week, several nights of the week. I guess you say 7, that's almost all of them, several nights. But I'll be here quite often doing the whole thing and talking with you about creativity, because I believe that creativity is one of the fundamental aspects of life, and it's largely been taken away from us. It's been supplanted by consumerism, by just being lax, the lackadaisical nature of everything, a very apathetic drive. And I want to bring back the whole idea of creativity where you're creating something. And it doesn't have to be a fancy painting, it doesn't have to be a work of art. Hey, maybe you're creating a good after school program. Maybe you're creating a healthy household. Maybe you're creating a beautiful lawn, right? You're a landscaper. You're just creating a beautiful lawn. Whether you're creating a social media presence or whatever. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating, I think that you can definitely enrich your life by engaging yourself more in the creative art. And I still don't mean that in the sense of the arts. I mean that in the sense of taking something and moving it, taking nothing and moving it into something, taking something and moving it into something greater, taking what was unformed and forming it into something, going from entropy to order, from chaos to process. What I want to do here is study creativity on a pretty general level, but I'm going to be covering a lot of topics that I personally enjoy. Video games, as I said, used to be a game developer, comic books, comic movies, sci-fi, the social media landscape. We'll definitely be getting into the art of marketing, sales, branding, promotions, advertising, and some of the dark arts, right? But in the meantime, I'm just going to take this one day at a time. I'm going to take this one step at a time and see if we can create something interesting. And of course, it's the beginning of the new year. And honestly, New Year's is my favorite holiday. It really is. I get a chance to stop, reflect, learn from what I did in the past year, and actually challenge myself to do things in the new year, as well as I get to act brand new on people. I get to try out some crazy things, get to be a little different, get to come out with some weirdness that you're probably going to you're just like, wait, what's he talking about? Why is he like this? Who is this guy? What the hell am I listening to? I get to get a little weird because at the beginning of the new year, you can always blame it on, well, he's trying out something for the new year. And they kind of expect you to go away. They kind of expect you to stop doing whatever you think you're doing. And they kind of expect everything to go back to normal. But it's the new year, so they give you a pass. And then around February, March, April, they kind of see you're still sticking with it and they might get a little annoyed. They'll say, okay, that was cute back then in January 1st, but now it's March 17th. You better tighten up. I don't know what you think you're doing. And they get a little upset, but they're so used to it from the past 3 months that they let it go anyway. And your resolution stands. So that's why I like resolutions. It's time for me to be creative. It's time for me to build, time for me to grow, time to do cool things. So yeah, as I said before, I messed this podcast recording up earlier, but I'm definitely going to get back into it. And maybe we'll get a scheduled time. I don't have a scheduled time right now, but I'll start scheduling a time for these and we'll see how it goes. Currently pumping out to Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll see which of those platforms is going to be my primary point of focus. Threads is my primary social point of focus, but after that, there needs to be something that connects all the people. So I I think it's going to be Instagram just from the history of people connecting with me there, but that might not actually be the case. I think it'll be the case, not totally sure. And let everybody know here. I've got to do an audio check to make sure. If you can't hear me say something, I should be loud and clear. So I got to type that out now just to keep the people involved. If you can't hear my voice, let me know. Because everything should be in order. But you know how these things go. You know how these things are. And it's not a waste if it didn't work. You still did the work. You still learned something. You still practiced. So don't feel sad for me. Let me know. So this is Creativity Threads Life, episode 3. Number, or just say what date it is. I'll just drop the date. Number whatever, because we may renumber these. This is the Creative Threads Life podcast for January 2nd, 2024, coming with a special New Year's episode where I'm going to be going over making your resolutions real. Because people seem to think they're fake. People seem to think that they really don't do anything, and they treat New Year's as if you're throwing a rock in a well or a penny in a lake and making a wish. That is not what resolutions are about. There are 4 stages to resolutions that I want to get into, but you've got to understand that you need to understand that resolutions themselves, that the idea of a resolution is not some magical fairy thing, and it's not just mashing the I want to do it button either. It's a state of mind, a state of being that you need to get into to conquer your fears, your insecurities, your hangups, to get over these things that were holding you back, to overcome these obstacles and make resolutions that actually move you forward year by year. I've been doing this for quite some time now, and people are always, I don't want to say shocked, but they're always surprised that I actually say stuff, stick to it, and get through it when I want to. And the when I want to part is important because there's a lot of desire and on one end, and then having no desire, just talking about stuff on the other end. But we are here to actually make things work. We are here to actually have action, not just not just you know empty words, not just platitudes, not just things we write on or whiteboard or in a journal to make ourselves feel better. We're going to get into the real nitty of it. And maybe I'll sit here about an hour, maybe 45 minutes or so, and we'll go over this thing. But first, this idea that resolutions aren't real. So you're probably in one of two camps where you assume resolutions are built up to be this magical thing, like wishing upon a star, or there's something special about the new year, and that astronomy and astrology have brought together to change things for the better as long as you believe in them. You may think that if you want, but that's not what I'm concerned with, because that is not where I believe, that is not where I'm going to be explaining the power of resolutions from. That's not the point of view I'm coming from. So there's the metaphysical side of it. Now, there is truth to putting your mind to something, thinking about working something out, and building a solid reasoning for yourself that works to make a resolution. But on the general face of it, this is not about a magical incantation of some sort that works on January 1st. And I didn't think anyone thought like that until I heard someone say there's nothing special about January 1st. If you make a wish on that day, nothing's going to happen. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's my favorite holiday. Slow down. What does any of that have to do with what I'm about to do? And then they kind of huffed and puffed and walked off all mad. I think but they didn't expect that. They expected to be coddled, or they do the old shoulder rub, like, oh yes, you're okay just the way you are. I mean, you're okay as a human just the way you are, but you're not okay if you're stagnant the way you are. You're not okay if you're staying the same the way you are. You have to be pushing forward towards something. Otherwise, you are, by definition, dying. Being stagnant, staying the same, just existing the ho hum life is being stagnant. That is death. And I don't deal with it. I deal with life. And that's where my idea of resolutions comes from. So now, the people on the other side of the equation, thinking that a resolution is a time to, write something crazy on the board, listen to motivational tapes, and say, listen, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. I'm going to run 10 miles every morning. I'm going to make $20,000 in 4 weeks, all from, um, selling popcorn on the side of the highway. Whatever you do, somebody's got some silly thing that they're coming up with. But those are all actions, and they don't fit the equation. I know some of you are saying, why wouldn't actions lead you anywhere? Well, sure they do, but they have nothing to do with who you are. They're an external measure. Say, well, if you do, run 5 miles every day and you get up at a certain time, you will. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure your body will change. Your perceptions will change. Right. But what I'm getting at is that's not the key. And I can tell you it's not the key because a lot of people it just doesn't work for them. Making resolutions in that way with the complete external factoid number on a wall method, it just doesn't work for a lot of people. And that's what I want to explore a little bit. Where can we get to a place where we have elements of the magical mystical and elements of the physical numerical that actually work for you? Because that's the important part. Does whatever you're doing work for you? Because no matter what we're talking about, you'll find a lot of people spouting information. Well, you just need to write it down. If you write it down, you know how much stuff I've written down that hasn't come true? Exactly. You've done it too. You've written stuff down, and then later on you throw that piece of paper away and say, that was stupid. So what I want to do is give you a whole different framework. And I said there are 4 basic steps to it, but I want to give you a whole different framework for thinking about resolutions and getting the change that you want to see. And the early part of the year is a very good time for it because it's fresh in your mind. You've kind of started and you're looking at all of that, all the things that have to happen in the year, coming around to the next Christmas, going back through Thanksgiving, Halloween, the summertime, back into spring, all the festivals and cons that happened throughout the summer and springtime, then leading back up into late winter, getting into March, getting into February, and of course leading back to now. You start thinking all the way through the year. But what I want you to do is think about today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. You're thinking about today. So when you start coming up with all these ideas in your head about getting a result, I want you to know you're already not on the right path. You're saying, I'm not on the right path. What are you talking about? I'm supposed to envision a result and get there, right? Let me make a little clarification here. Let me do a little bit of nuanced dance here. Bring a little nuance into the discussion. By the way, I will make up words at will. I care not what you think. I understand grammar. I don't care for a lot of it and change it at will. So nuantic is going to be a word. Nuantic. I like that better. So we're going to make some nuantic thoughts about the new year. So you got this new year, right? And you say you want a result. You say, hey, listen, I want to get into these pants. I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to get this much money. I want to have a better relationship with my kids. And you start coming up with all these external things that you write on a whiteboard or you write down somewhere. And those are fine. They're fine because you have to start somewhere. So yes, write those things down, put them into the universe, put them down on paper, think about them. But then that'll be your rough draft because they're going to change. They should change. And the reason they're going to change is because you don't know what you're talking about. Most times when you come up with a resolution, you don't know what you're talking about, and they need to be adjusted. Anybody who's worked in corporate America knows that some guy 5 levels up comes out with the Microsoft project Gantt chart and says, "Yeah, you should be done by this time." And then everybody screams and scrambles trying to figure out what they're going to do. And you never end up on the right time. You're either way too early and you spent too many resources, or you have too many resources remaining and it's not up to par, or maybe you couldn't get it all done in time and you're late on the schedule. You don't have enough resources instead of too many resources. This happens to real people too. So we don't have to look at corporate America to figure this out. You can just look at yourself. And based on the people that have talked, your resolutions are failing for some reason. There are many reasons why they would, and I have a lot of them written down. If you were here for my New Year's Eve epic stream, I went through about 60 resolution problems pretty quickly. But if you've got an idea of something, an idea, just start with an idea of a better life, an improvement into your environment, a way of change that moves you in the positive direction, a positive direction for you, not what somebody else says, for you. If you've got some inkling, some idea, then that's what you start with and you write that down. Sure. It's probably going to start out very external or very internal and vague. Internal and vague is like, I'm going to be a better person. External and vague, and external and incorrect is like, I'm going to lose 25 pounds by December, whatever. It is fine to have those. And here's where I'm going to get in trouble. But I would just want to offer a better way. I say, what can be better than being specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely, which is your SMART goals. I'll get on SMART goals later, but just want you to think about this. And I'll bring up the points as we go along. So follow on. I don't have time to debunk the whole thing. I'll just, as I bring up points, you'll understand that why I'm bringing this point up is to debunk that common thought. So, but I don't want to get into debunking everything right off the bat. But those are myths, yes, that you need to have something extremely specific that might get you started, but oftentimes it just, you set it in a mirror every day for 3 months. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Yeah, there are an enormous number of reasons why your resolutions didn't work. But understand, we got to get that started. Understand, you have to have an idea of where you want to go, a trajectory. First thing you have to have, first of these 4 steps, you have to have a reason. And we'll get into what a reason, well, I won't spoil it here, but you need to start with the reason. Someone says they just want to be healthier. That's not very much of a reason. It's kind of a vague, wouldn't it be nice if statement. But that doesn't really bring change. That doesn't do anything. And I said, on the more specific side, if someone says, instead of I want to be a better person, it's like I want to meet up with 16. I want to get 16 new close friends next week. It's like 16 new close friends by next week. Okay, I guess so. But what does that mean? See, both of these sides, and these are coming from the 2 major types of people who engage in resolutions in the past or in the future now. What both of these lack is a reason. And I didn't say a why, I said a reason. If you just have a why, you want to get healthier. Why? Well, my family's coming in town, and my uncle's going to see me, and he always says something about how chubby I am, so I want to get healthier. I was like, okay, that's better. That's a little more of a reason. And you start writing down all these little factoids about what's going to take you to that next level, what's going to move you forward. Or you start looking at that, okay, why did I write down I need to have well, let's stick with the health and weight example since so many people do that one. It's like, why do I need to run this much? Why do I need to run 4 miles and go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a whole year? Why do I need to have that? And it's like, well, to get healthier, to get more in shape, because I said I was going to last year. Because if I can do that, then I'll probably lose 4 pounds. And then if I do that, I'll probably be in better shape and I'll look better and I can go to the dance and the club and you know pick up more people. It'll be great. And that's how I'll get my 16 friends or whatever. And it just starts to become this, you're just picking numbers out of the sky. And it doesn't mean anything once again. So you got to start asking yourself that second question. Okay, well, why am I going to the gym? Get healthier. Yeah. But why are you what's what does your what is your soul? What does your internal version of you care about? You can't just have a reason that you don't care about. You need to have a reason that you care something about. My example was I was running up, I was taking a walk and I decided to take a shortcut. I wanted to see if you could get between these instead of going all the way around the block using the sidewalk. I wanted to see if I could cut between these buildings. I saw there was some grass and nobody, it wasn't like somebody's backyard or anything, but there was just this little path and walkway between one side of the block and the other. And I was like, boom, let me see if I can just walk through. So as I started walking through, I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool little area. And then I saw a series of steps with some planters on them. And the planters were, I'd say, like 3 feet high. And I thought to myself, okay, this is good. This is good. I can just cut through here, run up those stairs, jump over the planters, and then I'll be on the other side. And it'll be great. Cut out some time, did a little adventure, it'll be great. So I got a running start because I needed to run up the first couple steps, and then I needed to jump over this planter. So I started jogging, and even at the beginning of the jog, I felt my feet weren't pushing me along the way I wanted them to, and I felt my legs were a little tight. So yeah, I ran, bounded up a couple of the steps, and then when I took the last jump to jump over one of these planters so I could get to the other side, I hit my shin on the concrete edge of the planter, rolled across the plants through the dirt, and made a fool of myself. Nobody was watching, but I was like, that was foolish. Not because I shouldn't have done it, but because I thought that I still had the ability to run, bound up those steps, and then leap over this 3 foot planter. Was it 3 feet? Well, yeah, I wanted to get it in a single jump, but it didn't work out. Hit my shin, rolled through the dirt. Probably, I didn't kill the plants, but they got rolled over a little bit. And I jumped up, grabbed my leg. I wasn't too hurt. Limped through the plants, and ended up walking down the street at a much slower pace. My heart was beating, my chest was constrained, couldn't breathe as much as I wanted to. I was sweating a little just from that little jog and jump up the steps. And I was like, man, being in video games has made me weak. I mean, nothing about video games in particular. There are a lot of fit guys in the video game development industry, actually, but this game developer was not fit at the time. So I started running through all these thoughts through my head, like, okay, gosh, what just happened? What went on with me? Why did I want to do that? Why did I think I could? Why am I so upset that I couldn't? Why am I why am I not mad that my clothes are dirty, but I'm mad that I'm sweating? Why am I not mad that I could have fractured my shin? And why am I more worried that my legs were weak. And this was a bit of an identity, I wouldn't say crisis, but it was just a shock to my identity. I was like, hold on, man. I was a two-time winner of the Presidential Physical Fitness Award in elementary school. This is terrible. I played flag football. I was going back to my high school days. Like, this ain't right. I should be able to do this. Now, a lot of people will jump in at this point and just give up. Their thoughts give up, and they say, "Well, I'm just old. Well, I'm just not that person anymore. Well, I don't work out, so I don't have the right diet, or that planter was pretty high." They start coming up with excuses instead of reasons. You need a reason to do something, not an excuse to avoid something. So I took this to heart. I said, all right, I need a reason now. I shouldn't be this person. I shouldn't run up a but I bounded up those steps and was tired. My legs were a little weak, and I was like, this is terrible. This is about a decade ago or longer. Yeah, about a decade ago, a little under a decade ago. So yeah, wasn't feeling great about it. Really mad at myself, and I used that anger. Actually, this is where I advise focusing on the negative. When you're trying to figure out a reason to go to the positive, it is okay to acknowledge the negative. Look at the bad things. Don't dwell on them, and don't try to completely ignore them and say they don't exist. Just acknowledge them, acknowledge that feeling, and then deal with it. So I'm limping and I'm walking, and it's not like a limping something broken, but yeah, my leg was a little throbbing, a little hurt. It was bruised a little bit, but that didn't matter to me. I was just upset that I couldn't do something that I really thought I should be able to do. And then I started coming up with bullet points of my current shape as of why I wasn't doing that. I'm like, look, you drive too much, you should be walking to these locations. Look, you're eating like a pig. You're eating a bunch of snacks, or you're not eating food that's gonna work for you in the future. And I started to think about all the things that I was doing that were keeping me from my goal of being not. I didn't even have like a fit goal in mind. I didn't have a pant size. Didn't say I was going to lose a certain number of pounds. Didn't say I was going to be in the gym for however long. I did the gym thing before, so that was fine. But now I had a reason. Now I had a reason. I'm not going to be that chump. If some kid comes running, I want to be able to jump up the stairs and jump over the planter. I just want that freedom of mobility. I didn't want to ever feel scared of running upstairs because I'd get tired, I'd get the wind knocked out of me from a failing attempt at hopping a planter. That just seems silly to me. Totally messed with my identity. Didn't like it. Terrible. But I held on to that intentionally so I could properly acknowledge it and start finding out things I could do. And that's just an example of finding a reason. First step, you got to find a reason in the real world, preferably. Not just something that sounds nice, not just something you're going to write on a whiteboard, something that will have a real world consequence, something that will be remarkable to you. And when I say remarkable, I mean that literally. Like, it will cause a remark through some person or something that will make a solid acknowledgement of your progress. That's remarkable. But you have to have a reason. And that reason has to be real with real world implications. Now, what do I mean by real world implications? You can't just say you're going to get healthier. Sure, that's something you can say, and that's probably a good thing to have. But let's quantify that a little bit. What is the real world meaning of that? Um, if you want to simply be able to say, I go to the gym every day, that's not a very strong reason. But if you want to be able to say, I'm more fit than anybody in my development team. Maybe you work with a team of developers and you're all kind of in bad shape. If you can say to yourself, listen, we have a bad look. I want to lead us out of it. I am going to clearly be the most fit person in this development group. That's a good reason. It shows competition, social order. You may be having some thoughts of status on your mind. Lots of different reasons. But starting with the reason is a great way to go. Maybe you really do want to be around for your kids. I know a lot of older people have this problem when they run across a health ailment and they realize their children are too young to really interact with them in the way they want. So they really start thinking like, oh gosh, if I can't make it 10 more years, I won't be able to see my son graduate from high school. And high school graduation may be the most important thing to you. Like in your life, it just may mean something really important to you, not to anybody else, not to some construction paper thermostat you've got on the wall to chart your progress. I'm talking about something that actually means something to you in your life. If you don't have a reason, come up with one. Come up with something. If it takes you too long and you only have a weak reason, just leave it on that sheet of paper, leave it on your whiteboard, and come back to it later and see if you can come up with a better reason. As you go through life and you're thinking about a reason to get fit, or a reason to get more money, or a reason to get into a relationship, or whatever, you just need to have it on your mind. It will refine itself if you keep hammering at it. But get that reason. So that's step one. And I spend a little more time on that because it's definitely important to have that first step of getting a reason together, whatever that reason means to you. Now, the second step is you're going to try to resolve your reasoning. Now, a second ago, I mentioned having excuses. A little while ago, I mentioned having excuses. And I should make the separation between a reasoning and an excuse right now. When someone gives you an excuse, they're making a justification for not doing something, as opposed to a reason why they did or why something happened the way it did. Because once you give an excuse, you're shaking your hands clear of the whole situation. And like, well, you can't blame me for you can't. And it's like, whatever. That's not helping you. That's making you stay in the same place that you already are. If you have a reason, or there's a reasoning behind what you're doing, now we're getting somewhere. Say, look, why didn't you make it to work on time? You say, well, the traffic was excuse. The reason you didn't make it to work on time was because you were unable to navigate the traffic and get there in time. Now, if you were really worried about getting to work on time, you would have checked Google Maps earlier in the day. You would have gotten up earlier. You would have seen that maybe something was wrong, or maybe the accident came out of nowhere. Well, how long does an accident take to resolve if you're looking at the traffic data? Half hour? Leave for work a half hour earlier? Maybe you can't do that, or maybe you shouldn't do that, or maybe you don't want to. Well, then your reason is, I don't want to spend that time. I don't want to spend that time planning. I want to be at home, or I want to do whatever else. But don't make an excuse out of it. Don't try to excuse yourself or justify. So make sure you're not making excuses when you're building your reasoning. And I wanted to stop and mention that because what's going to happen in the next step of trying to resolve your reasoning is you're going to come up with a couple problems. You're going to come up with conflicts of interest, internal conflicts that need to get resolved. Like, I need to go to the gym every morning, but in the mornings, I like to relax and sip on tea. What am I going to do? You have to resolve these things. Something has to get let go. Something has to get put to the side Something has to get prioritized and something has to get deprioritized. Something has to get worked on and something else has to be left alone, possibly to rot away if you don't cut it off manually yourself. You're going to have to make choices. You're going to have to resolve some things because the variables in your life all need to come to balance, and you need to learn what it is to resolve something, because once you resolve something and you've got a problem, at least in your head for the moment, you've got a certain problem solved, you've resolved it, you've boiled it down to its essence, and you know what you need to do. Then you come to the third state, which is a resolution. If you've come to a resolution, then you have a complete working set of guidelines that is going to take you somewhere that you have a good reason to go. If you have a resolution, that means you have become resolute. You have taken reasons, you've resolved them, and now you're at a resolute state because you have a resolution. If you are in mentally a resolute state, it's not just that you decided or you puffed your chest up and said, I'm going to do 500 push-ups a day. That's not a resolution. That's a statement of hot air. A resolution is coming to that decision in your head where you say, listen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, but I am going to push towards that desired endpoint. Maybe you start doing push-ups and you realize your wrists are hurting. Your resolution is going to do one of two things, or one of a couple things. It's either going to give up, which you don't want to do, or you find something else to do. Now, this is why I said a resolution isn't just writing some numbers on the board, because anybody can do that, but that's not a resolution. A resolution is actually coming to that decision. So you said you're going to do all these push-ups and you start doing them and your wrists start hurting. Now what? Does that mean you've broken your resolution because your wrist started hurting and you failed and you can't do it anymore? No. Your resolution was not to reach some certain number, some arbitrary figment of your imagination, a metric that may or may not be worth anything to you, a value that you can't control, because you thought you could do 500 push-ups, but you can only get around to 37 before your wrists start hurting. What are you going to do? You might have to do bench press. You might have to do pull-ups in order to get the type of shape that you want while your wrists take time to catch up with the rest of you. You see what I'm saying? You might have to do something a little different than you thought you would do to make it to where you want to be. Because in any journey, you'll never know the entire path. You barely even know the path of getting from where you are to work. You may have to stop, go around something. There may be a parade going on. You may have to take somebody else's car. You may have to stop for gas. Somebody may call you and say, hey, you forgot something at the house. You may have to turn back around. You have your general trajectory, even for something as simple as getting to work. Now, if there's something more complex, and you generally are complex because you don't have a simple reason, reasons come from a lot of variables internally. But once you start resolving them, coming to a resolution, you'll realize that, you know what, this is not quite working out. Maybe I need to think about my reasoning again. Why am I doing this again? Right. Okay, that's still valid. If that's still valid, then you go back to how you're resolving this again. It's like, okay, I don't have a gym membership, but I do have a floor, so I can do push-ups. Okay, but the push-ups are hurting my wrists. So what else can I do? I can do sit-ups. Okay, but then my back starts hurting. Okay, now I need to start thinking, I still have a good reason, but the way I was trying to resolve this situation with the resources that I have isn't working out for me. So what do I do next? What do I do next? Then you start thinking to yourself, all right, I've got a jump rope. A jump rope is cheap. Doesn't need me to go to the gym. I can just go in the backyard and start jumping rope. My legs have always worked great. I don't get any pains when I jump rope. It'll get me started. So now you have a resolution maybe to keep moving sometime during the day. So you resolve to yourself, yes, I'm going to keep moving sometime during the day. You may slip and not make every day, but then you may go hard, twice a day and do something 3 times a day. Especially if you're doing something like push-ups, you may need to break that up into different pieces so you don't do them all at once. You may need to break them up into different sets. Some in the morning, some in the afternoon, some at night. What I'm saying is you're going to continually go back to this reasoning and resolve state and then seeing if your resolution still stands. But if you think of resolutions as something on a whiteboard, like, well, I'm going to go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. And then, yeah. Schedule all you want, but remember, the real world, the resolutions that you're trying to make in the real world may not work for that. So that's not your resolution. Your resolution is to get on a path that causes that reasoning that you thought of to work out with the resolve that you've made. So you got your resolution. And that may seem like a little bit of a vague definition for resolution because it really didn't define a resolution. But it's getting in that resolved state where you are now of a resolute nature, where someone can't shake your foundation. If you go out to eat and you resolve to be a healthier individual, whatever that means, however you define it, you do whatever you do. If you said, listen, I made a resolution that I was going to be able to run up a flight of stairs without getting winded, without getting sweaty, and without falling over. If that was your resolution, I want to be able to be this thing. If I am this thing, then I should be able to do this. You can phrase it as that too. I want to be this, and I need to be able to do this to prove it. That's a good way of framing a resolution. Where if I call myself fit, I want to be able to run up a flight of stairs without getting winded. That's all I want to be able to do. So you get to school, there's a flight of stairs, run up it. If you're winded, you're not done. Run up it the next day. You go out to eat, somebody offers you fried chicken sandwich, say, no, I will have the grilled chicken sandwich. Get away from me with all that shit. It's like, all right, you started to take a step forward. And I need to sneeze. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, man, I am allergic to talking about some nonsense. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So yeah, you're in a resolute state. And you can tell when someone's in a resolute state because they have a hard time accepting your nonsense and your BS for too long. And when I say your nonsense and your BS is your way of doing things, your way of seeing the world that doesn't fit their resolute nature anymore. So you ever try to give a kid that's been babied for far too long, you try to give that kid a bottle and the kid pushes it away and wants the cup? That kid has resolved that, hey, look, I'm old enough. Give me the cup, the kid says. I don't want that bottle anymore. I'm a grown kid. That kid has resolved something within himself or herself or theirself. The kid's resolved something and has just kind of come to a decision. I mean, if they get thirsty, they may go ahead and drink from the bottle or whatever. But you can tell that decision's there. It's like, all right, I'm going to let this one slide, but I want that cup. Same thing with you. You should get to a point where it's like, all right, I might not be able to run up all those steps, but I can run up the first 4. I'm coming for you, steps. And hopefully you have a good reason. Once again, I don't know if just being able to run up the stairs is good enough of a reason for you, but that really messed with my identity. So that became my reason. I wasn't worried about looking good for anybody. All I knew is that if I was out somewhere and there were a bunch of stairs, I wanted to be able to run up them. And it's come up quite a bit too. You're at a football game or a basketball game and you got some seats, need to run up a couple stairs, boom, boom, boom. I want to run up the stairs fast. If the hot dog man is up the stairs, boom, boom, boom. I want to be up there to meet him. I want to come back down happy, not sweating and breathing hard. If I go to if an elevator's taking too long, I just want to be able to run up the stairs and not be sweaty when the other people open up the elevator doors and I'm already up there chilling. It became a thing for me. I can't totally explain it, but it was a thing. Had to be able to do that. For people with a resolute nature. And that's what you need. Not just some empty platitude or some promise to yourself that has no weight. You're not making a promise to yourself when you just say, "Well, I'm going to do this, I can do that." I don't care what you can do. I don't care what you say you will do. I care that you've become resolute, that you've resolved something, and that you have a reasoning behind it. That's to me getting to that resolute state. That is a resolution. I spent enough time on this because I wanted to really nail that home. The way you're thinking about resolutions is probably not solid. And this is going to take more than one day, by the way. You're not just going to write on your whiteboard on January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th, or whatever, one thing and it stay the same. You're going to need to adjust it, tweak it, work it a little bit to where it makes sense for you, where all the 4 steps work out. And speaking of the 4 steps, there's step number 4. You need to get to a place of rebirth where you're essentially a different person. Now, we change all the time, and we like to say that, oh, I'm the same person, or I don't change, or, I'm still me. Yeah, I get you. I understand that. I'm not trying to confuse that. But when you hit the rebirth stage, you switch gears completely. And people will know it, you'll know it, your environment will know it, but you've had a rebirth when you hold on to your resolution hard enough. You may not have actually reached the point that you want to get to by setting your resolution. You may not have even gotten there, and you'll go through a rebirth. How does that work? So let's say you're working on getting healthier. I'll just stick with this example because so many people are on it. Some people are probably in the gym. Hopefully, if you're in the gym, you're listening to a group of friends. And this is the thing you do. You go out, you eat with all your friends, you all start talking it up and you're happy and having fun. Every time you're out with your friends, you start eating like a pig. Anything that comes in front of your plate, you're eating it. Your friend from college reaches over the table, he hands you a plate and he's like, "You got to try this." You eat that too. Then you order drinks. Then afterwards, you go to another bar, you order some more drinks there. You're getting fat as a house. You don't care. You say, "Well, I'll go work out in the morning." On the way home, you're a little tired. You stop by, get a coffee. Might as well get a donut while you're at it. You make it home. Hopefully, you didn't drink too much because you don't want to be drinking and driving. But anyway, now you're tired. You're full of fattening food. You're full of sugar from the donut and the coffee. You can't wake up at a decent time. You wake up late. You need to get somewhere, so you get something fast. Let me stop by McDonald's. Get something real quick from McDonald's because that's good for me. That's all a problem. And that's you being the same you, regardless of what you've done up to that point. What will start to happen is you'll hit a rebirth stage or somewhere along the way, you go out to eat. And as I said, somebody offers you a chicken sandwich, a fried chicken sandwich. And you're like, "No, give me the grilled chicken sandwich." And they're like, "Oh, okay." They try to slide a big iced tea across to you. It's like, "Hey, we have the sweet iced tea. Go ahead and drink this." And you're like, "No, actually, I'm good. I'll have uh, you know, something less sweet. I'll have apple juice and seltzer, maybe a pineapple seltzer. Cut down on some of the sugar by throwing some seltzer water in there. Maybe that's your thing. I don't know. Then the meal comes. You're full, but you kind of want to finish the rest of it anyway. So you just go ahead and finish eating because everybody else is still eating. So you just finish the food anyway. That would have been the old you. Maybe when you're finished with your food, you call the waiter over and say, box the rest of this up. And they're like, oh, you don't like it? Oh, you don't like your grilled chicken sandwich and pineapple seltzer water? Oh, you didn't like it? And they want to make fun of you because you're not doing what you used to do. But you're like, no, I'm wrapping this thing up. You might just, I used to wrap food up to act like I was going to eat it, but then just throw it away later. How about that? People didn't like the idea of throwing away food. I didn't feel like dealing with that kind of pushback. So sometimes I would just wrap the food up and then throw it away later if I didn't want it. Sometimes I'd wrap the food up and then eat it in small portions later. Still better than forcing yourself to eat it right then. So yeah, maybe instead of driving home and getting coffee and donuts, why don't you take a nap? Set your alarm for 15 minutes in the restaurant parking lot or whatever. Maybe it's only 7 o'clock at night. 15-minute nap, and then you're refreshed enough to drive home without it. Or maybe instead of a hot coffee, maybe you just get a hot drink. Maybe that the heat is enough to keep you awake. Get a lollipop. I don't know. Play loud music. Do something. But what I'm saying is you're being resolute at this point where you're like, no, I know what I'm doing is going against what I've resolved to do. And I have my reason for doing it this way. So I need to start pushing back against some of this negativity, this thing that's pushing me in the direction I don't want to go, which is the definition of negativity. And I need to start thinking about going in a positive direction. So now you're getting in a positive direction, a better way of thinking about things, a better way of going ahead with it. It may not be perfect. It may be silly. It may be kind of goofy. It may not even work. You may have to try many things. But at some point, you're going to go out with your friends and you're going to sit down and they're going to say, well, what do you have? And you might say, oh, I'm just having the sushi. And it's like, oh, okay. You usually eat the steak with us or the chicken sandwich. Yeah, I'm not ordering that. Or you might order the whatever. And then you might not start going out to eat with your friends. Maybe you meet up with them at the bar, but you go eat with somebody else. Maybe your whole friends group changes. Maybe after you stop eating like that, you realize the only reason you were hanging out with them was to eat like a fat ass. That was a weird inflection. Fat ass, not fat ass. What I'm saying is, when you're resolute and you're of a certain ilk, you will start to separate yourself from where you were and be reborn as another version of you. I have a group of friends, they still go out to eat, and I just don't meet with them. I meet with them in other places, and it's all good. And if I do go out with them, one time they went out to Taco Bell, and I was like, cool. I met them there, and they had food from somewhere else. I mean, Taco Bell, the manager might come out and say, excuse me, sir, you're not supposed to be eating other food. Make it out of here. It's Taco Bell. They ain't going to say anything. Anyway, that is having the rebirth. When all of a sudden you realize that you're in a different lane. That you were in the far right lane and now you're 3 lanes over. You're like, yeah, I'm not getting off the off ramp, but I'm 3 lanes over now. I'm on a different lane. I'm in the line to go somewhere else. The off ramp is going to take people that way. I'm going to go this way. You may still be in the same place physically, but people see you a little differently. You see the world a little differently. Your rebirth is there. Maybe people were used to getting a bunch of gifts during Christmas, but you stopped splurging on Christmas gifts. You started keeping that for your closer friends. Everybody's like, hey, I didn't receive my coffee mug and t-shirt this year. What happened? It's like, hey, not sending them to everybody this year. Sorry. You might need to do that. If you're not really worried about the social group of friends, you might just need to pull back on that. But you only start getting that realization that you're separating from where you used to be, and you start attaching to where you're going, attaching to the energies that are going in your direction. That's when you start having that rebirth. And at some point, whether you consciously realize it or not, your mind will have switched over. So I'm making this sound like it's a long process. Sometimes it's an actual instantaneous change at any of these four stages. Sometimes you just have an instantaneous thing that says, nope, I am never doing that again. And it just happens like that. Sometimes it builds up over years where you're a little better year by year. But it just depends. So don't hurt yourself if you're, you don't have, if something changes too quickly and you're like, I don't know what's going on. It's fine. You may just be changing for the week. You may snap back, learn something, and keep trying, keep going again. But anyway, those are the four. That is, once again, reason, resolve, resolution, and rebirth. And I've gone through all these stages many times, and I mark it down like this. I have a wildly different view of resolutions, goals, objectives, aspirations, trajectories, and strategies than everybody else I know, but it works for me. And I hope that what this has done is showing you that there are different ways of thinking about this. Listen, don't just write something on a board. Start getting a reason together and work on that reason every day. Say, well, you know what? This reason wasn't strong enough. Let me make it stronger. You know what? This reason is a little too all over the place. Let me focus it a little bit. You know what? This reason is a little too tight. Maybe I need to expand my reasoning a little bit. And then once you've gotten your reason down, try to resolve any of the problems or any of the obstacles or any of the detriments to that reasoning and rationale. Start trying to resolve them. Start trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I make this work? Okay, how can I still hang out with my friends without turning into a fat ass like the rest of them? Okay, how can I go to the gym and not become a gym rat? I don't like gyms. How can I get fit? How can I, oh, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to work out so much as I do need to change my diet. Okay, maybe I don't need to change my diet except for change the friends that I eat with. Okay, maybe it's not so much. And you're going to go do a lot of back and forth. So that's the resolve part. Once again, you get to your resolution. Once you start getting into that resolute state where you start settling into, I believe this, and I don't go for that, I avoid that, and I go towards this. Once you get to that resolute state, and if you're looking at a graph, you can put a dot on one part of the graph that's your current self, another part of the dot which you don't, another set of dots of where you don't want to be, and another set of dots of where you want to be. And you should have some sort of direction, which I call a trajectory, that's sending you in a basic direction. You get a resolution, you have a resolute nature, you don't know how you're going to get there, but you're going in some direction that you know is good for you. And you're going to be figuring out along the way, you're going to be trying shortcuts, you're going to be trying long cuts that don't work either. You're going to be trying a lot of different ways to get on this path. But if you have a resolute nature, you're just going to keep at it because that's you now. You're like that baby who no longer wants the bottle. He wants the sippy cup and he wants the real person cup. In fact, he may even want a crystal glass. He may want a glass out of the nice shelf where nobody drinks from. And finally, you get your rebirth stage where you're settled in and you're starting to actually make changes. That's when things start to get weird and unfamiliar because you don't know what's going on in this new world, this new state, and you may actually want to snap back to your old way of doing things just because it's more comfortable. But no, you are in the rebirth stage. And listen, I hope that was good for you. I'm going to try to keep these at about an hour or less, but this was the four that were on my mind, and it was important that I put it out there like this because, hey, it's New Year's time. This is Creativity Threads Life, the podcast where we talk about creativity and all of its connections in and out of life, whether you're creative or not. This is Mr. Benja. Thank you for joining me. Please be sure to follow on any of my social platforms, but for the podcast in particular, check us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever podcast player you use. If you have a different podcast player, let me know. I'd like to hear about it. Maybe I'll put up a special link for that podcast player on the webpage. All right. I'll talk to you later. See you again.